In this episode of Adulting is Easy and Other Lies, we talk about what happens when the life you're holding together doesn't always feel as seamless as it looks from the outside. If you've ever felt like you're just trying to keep up or figure things out as you go, you're not alone. This is your reminder that the highlight reel isn't the whole story. Before sharing the stories of others, I'm sharing some of my own, from entrepreneurship and motherhood to navigating setbacks, self-doubt, and the pressure to keep everything moving. I've spent a lot of time trying to be what everyone else needed me to be. This episode is about the reality behind the roles we play, the lessons you only learn while you're in it, and what it means to rebuild while still showing up. Because sometimes the most honest thing you can do is admit that you're just still figuring it out. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Adulting is Easy and Other Lies podcast. I am your host, Kara, and I am so happy to have you back for our second season. So today, it's just me. No guests, no back and forth, just a quieter kind of conversation, a moment to speak plainly about who I am and why this space exists. For a long time, excuse me, I have a piece of hair. For a long time, I thought I had to wait until things made more sense, wait until life felt more settled, wait until I had the right words or the right ending or some kind of clarity I could stand on. But life doesn't really offer that kind of timing. It moves while you're still trying to understand it. So this podcast didn't start from resolution. It started from everything I didn't know how to say out loud while I was living it. And this is me reintroducing myself to you. So I'm someone who's lived through seasons of my life where my body changed to the pace of my life, where I had to learn that energy is not something that you can force, that capacity is not something you can always predict, and that okay doesn't always look the way that other people expect it to. I've also lived through a grief so deep that it didn't just arrive and then leave, but it rearranged how I understand time itself, how I understand presence, how I understand what it means to love someone who's no longer here in the same way that they once were. And somewhere in all of that, I became someone who stopped believing in a perfectly linear story, because mine certainly hasn't been one. But it has been real. And I think that what it's given me more than anything is honesty. A quieter kind of honesty, one that lives underneath everything else. There are moments in my life that feel like they divided everything into the before and the after. One of them is my health, which I talk a lot about. It changed how I move through the world, not just physically, but internally. It asked me to slow down in ways that I didn't choose, and to redefine what I thought strength was. I used to think that strength meant just pushing through, but I've learned that it can also mean listening. It can also mean stopping. It can mean admitting that you're not meant to carry everything in the same way all of the time. Another one of those moments that divided things into the before and the after was losing my brother. It's hard to put that one into words that will ever feel like enough, because it didn't just become something that happened in my life. it became something that I now carry through every moment of my life. It changed how I understand connection, how suddenly and quietly life can shift shape, how someone can be a part of your everyday world and then exist differently and yet still so profoundly. It doesn't get smaller with time. It just becomes part of how you move through everything else coming forward. And I don't share these things as two separate chapters. I share them because they're both big things that changed the way that I see everything that came after. They changed how I listen. They changed how I hold space, not just for others, but for myself. And it changed how I understand people who are still in the middle of their own becoming. For a long time, I waited for life to feel more complete before I spoke about it, as if I needed a final version of my story before I could share any of it, even a chapter. But I don't believe that anymore. I think that most of life happens in the middle. The unfinished parts, in the not knowing, in the places where things are still unfolding and nothing has resolved into something neat or easy to explain. This podcast is my way of staying there, in that middle space where the meat of it is. Not rushing towards answers, not trying to smooth everything out into perfection, but sitting with what is real, even if what is real is still in motion. Conversations about identity, conversations about survival, about grief, about just becoming. Not as concepts, but more as lived experience from other people. If you're here, you can expect honesty. Not polished versions of people, not perfectly packaged lessons. Just real conversations that move like real life does. Sometimes heavy, sometimes light, often both at the same time. We'll talk about becoming, about losing, about rebuilding, about all the ways that people try to make sense of themselves in the middle of everything else. And the intention is always going to be the same. Honesty over performance, presence over perfection, and curiosity over certainty. So this is where we start, not from resolution, but from reality, from everything that is still unfolding. I'm glad you're here. Let's begin. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining the Adulting is Easy and Other Lies podcast. I'm so glad to have you back with me this season. And for anybody who wasn't here last season and saw the hot mess that was the beginning of this journey for me, thank you for coming back and coming around for round 2. I promise the season is going to be better. I have learned a lot in the way of editing and organization as far as getting ready for every guest that I speak to. But today, as my introduction said, this is more just kind of about me and why I decided to do this. So as I talked about in my own health journey, I've kind of found that I've been really lonely. A lot of people don't really understand illness that you can't see. People don't understand the impact that immense fatigue has on people,
And I'm not talking about like, I'm tired, I've been working a lot, I'm just exhausted. Like, fatigue is a completely different beast than just being tired. And for those of you who do not understand that, I strongly urge you to do your research, do some digging into the difference, because for those of us who are struggling with this, it is really, really devastating to have people try to compare their tired with a medical fatigue. I not only found it lonely, I found it very I found it to be almost insulting and belittling the way that people responded to how I was dealing with my journey. So my way of kind of buffering the fall for myself was to speak with others about their own struggles, their own observations about humanity and communication and interactions with other people, and learn from them and learn from what others have done to dig themselves out of dark places. I'm a person who, in a very short span of time, lost almost everything that mattered to me in my life. I lost my independence. I lost my health. I lost my education. I lost multiple jobs that I loved and that made me feel very good about myself and the impact that I was making on my community. And I lost those because I wasn't physically able to withstand the pressure and the commitment that they required anymore. Not only that, but it became a safety risk for me to be participating in these things. So, on top of all of that, in the background, I was also dealing with the loss of my brother, who died suddenly in January of 2022. And when I say suddenly, it was suddenly to us because at that moment, it wasn't the phone call we were expecting to get. But we did watch him suffer with his addictions and his own demons and his own mental health for many, many years. So two things can be true at the same time. Yes, it was sudden, but yes, it was kind of the trajectory that we had expected to happen for many years. That doesn't make it any easier. That doesn't make it any less grief-filled or difficult to walk through or come out on the other side of. So now I'm dealing with that loss and the disruption that brought to my family, because after the loss of my brother, there was a brief glimmer of hope that we were all going to kind of band together and become closer and do better and take care of ourselves better and look out for one another better and communicate more and just be a better family. But that small window just blew open into such small shards of glass. And now that's not the case. There is a ton of disconnect and no communication in my family. There is always at some point or another members that are non-contact. At this point, I've been no contact with my father for over 2 years, and I'm basically no contact with my sister. Is it easy? No. But when you've spent so many years trying to be the rock and that stable source of security for people in your family or in your life, and then you get to a point in your life where you are now in the most difficult season you've ever been in, and you feel like none of those people are maybe taking notice that the person who's always there for everybody else might need someone, it makes it a really easy segue into saying, you know what? Fuck this. I deserve better than this. I've given better than this. And I'm not going to stand here and just be a placeholder in this system until they need me again. So I guess like the bottom line is that no matter what you're going through, no matter who you are, no matter what your upbringing is, there's always stuff going on behind closed doors that people just don't see or don't ever think could be a possibility. And that's why I think that it's so important to actually listen to others when you hear them talk. Get to know them, be interested in their story, care about the journey that they're walking, because you just never know when the person who may seem like the strongest person to you all the time is fighting the biggest battle in silence with nobody asking, "Are you okay?" And it's something that really has become more and more apparent to me over the last few years. And I just think that I went through so much of life in a daze of not really, I wouldn't say not caring, but not really like paying attention to the big picture and like where I stood in the pecking order of the people that I loved and care about so much and always put, in front of my own needs. I put theirs, I would rush to their rescue, jumped to help them, celebrate them big. But where were all these people when I was needing them? They just weren't there. And so you might notice that I am not recording from where I usually do. I am currently in my bed. I've been having some health issues, and I kind of want to get into this a little bit because it's kind of going to lay the path for how this season's going to look. And unfortunately, that might put a little damper into some of the things that I had planned, but it is what it is. This is life, and this is how we go. So I've been having some weird things happen with myself health-wise for it's a few months. So my last MRI was in October, end of October of 2025. And at the beginning of November, I was sitting in bed, similar to how I'm sitting right now. This is kind of like the best angle for my body. I don't know, my blood pooling and my fainting and everything kind of just holds at bay when I'm propped up in bed with pillows everywhere. So I was sitting in bed and I think we were watching Schitt's Creek or something, my husband and I, before bed one night, and I like let out a big deep belly laugh and, flung my head back laughing as you do. And when I did that, I got this like super sharp pain up my neck into the bottom of my skull. And it just like was like this really sharp, deep pain like that just zapped through me. And then I felt like I was literally a cartoon character off of Looney Tunes that had just been hit in the face with a shovel, and my head was like dangling off the back of my body. It felt like my head was going to fall off. It was so painful, and I just couldn't explain. It was so hard to explain the sensation. So the next time I went to the neurologist office, which I'm there every 4 weeks for nerve blocks, the next time that I went there, I was letting her know what had happened and what the sensation was, what I'd felt. And, she kind of, it's not that she didn't take it seriously. She's like, okay, I'll note it. She's like, asked a bunch of questions about, did you feel this sensation? Did this happen? Was there any weakness? Was there any this, that, like asks all the questions, and there was nothing else. It was literally just that. Tilted my head back, strange, really sharp pain. And then like, it felt like it was going to fall off, and then whatever, it went away. Well, she's like, okay, well, we'll keep an eye on it. You're here every month. So, we don't need to stress because there's been no other symptoms. Let's just see what it looks like at the next visit. Well, by, I want to say February or March, I started having this weird thing where like my nightstand is on that side of me. So I have like my water cup is over here, my chapstick, my lotion, like all my things. And I started having this thing where if I turned my head to the right, and it doesn't happen every time, and I don't even know if it's with a certain speed or what, it is so random when it happens. But if I turn my head to the right, I have this crazy like pulling sensation in my left side of my neck up into my head. And it feels like my head is literally trying to like spin around inside and like internally decapitate itself. Most bizarre feeling, hurts so bad, and then just goes away. So this has been going on for a few months at this point. April 25th, I was at the office with my husband. He was working on a Saturday and I went in to go clean the office. It's a wood shop. Like there is dust everywhere all the time. It doesn't matter what you do. It's just dusty. So I wanted to get in there and get cleaned. And while I was cleaning, I like was just sweeping the floor and something tweaked in my back. And I was like, oh shit, that hurt. Ugh. You know, let's walk it off, walk it off. And then I went into the back to go and just shoot the shit with Mark for a few minutes while I was, you know, walking it off and trying not to go back into that sweeping motion from the side, thinking that that's what the problem was. Well, as soon as I started to try and talk to him, it was like my mouth wouldn't work. The sensation felt like my tongue was too big for my face. Like it was the size of my head trying to fit in my mouth and work in my mouth. I could not make words, and not that I couldn't make words, just like everything sounded garbled and like I was drunk and I could feel it. So first instinct was to check fast, right? Well, I didn't have anything else. There was no drooping, there was no weakness, there was no tingling, and I've had like left side facial tingling for years. I've had so many people try to tell me it's migraines. It's not. Whatever. Don't fucking listen to me, but they have the degree, I don't. Oh my God, where was I? Oh, yeah. So I'm trying to talk to my Mark, and I cannot get words out. And anybody who knows me knows I like to talk. My mouth does not stop moving. So for me to not be able to make words is a fucking travesty and is just debilitating. I'm like panicking. I don't know what the fuck to do. I'm trying to walk it off, work it off, like whatever, just let it go. It's not going away. I ended up calling HealthLink that night to try and just, you know, I knew that they were going to say go to emergency room. That's all HealthLink ever says is go to the emergency room. So honestly, I love the nurses at HealthLink, but it's just a waste of fucking everybody's time because they're just going to tell you to go in because legally they can't tell you anything over the phone. So they told me to go in, but as anybody who's got chronic illness or lives with a pain problem, like migraines, chronic pain, any of those type things knows, especially in Canada, Alberta, the way our fucking health system is right now, it's just a mess. If you go to an emergency room, you are looking at an 8+ hour wait in a waiting room with terrible lighting, terrible seats, people hacking their faces off and not covering their mouths, people screaming. It's just not a very good environment for somebody who's not okay, which obviously who wants to go hang out at the hospital? So I've got a bad taste in my mouth for the emergency rooms in Calgary. And to be quite honest, most of the staffing the emergency rooms, I have no respect for. I think that there's a lot of really mean girl nurses that have a fucking superiority complex and think that they know you and your system better than you do. I think there's a lot of miserable staff who hate their jobs and don't want to be there. I think there's a lot of people, because there is such a fentanyl and drug crisis in our city, I think there's a lot of people that assume that somebody who's a chronic pain patient is drug seeking, when that's not the case. We all have hordes of drugs at home. If we just wanted drugs, we would stay home and do the drugs at home. We don't need to go and sit in emergency rooms for 8 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours to get drugs. We're coming to you because the drugs aren't working. We're looking for a different solution to our problem. So when this stuff is going on and I cannot speak words at all, they're telling me to go in. Well, sorry, I didn't go in. Anyways, this speech problem ended up lasting a whole day. The next day I woke up, it was gone. But since then, that was April 25th, which It's crazy. I have all these dates documented. I send myself text messages, so I have things to myself. I send my doctor messages. Like, I've got dates and times and everything documented to a T. So since April 25th, when the first incident happened that lasted a full day of speech issues, it has happened, I want to say, probably a dozen or more times. None have lasted that long. Most of them are only a couple of hours at the most. I think I had one that was about a half a day. And it's always the same sensation, same issue with the speech garbling. It's crazy. So I finally go back into the neurologist in the end of May. I think it was the 25th of May or something like that. I go see her and tell her about my neck turning to the head sensation where it feels like it's going to internally decapitate, and it's only when I turn right, and then told her about the speech problem. Well, that apparently was a big red flag. So she's like, I think that we need to get you an angio. She's like, I'd like to do an MRI, but I know I can get you into a CT angio faster. So let's do that. So she booked me into a CT angio. I had the CT angio done on the 27th of June. It was like a Saturday night. Great timing. My daughter's best friend's going away party because she's moving to the US, which, your kids, side note, your kids have good friends when you cry when their friend moves away. Sarah, we love you. But yeah, so the 27th in the evening, I had the CT. On the 30th, which was my 8-year wedding anniversary, I was getting ready because Mark was taking me to dinner, and my phone lights up with my chart. So my CT angio results are up. I am not shitting you. 4 minutes from the time those results hit my chart to the time my neurologist was phoning me herself, not her office, her. Okay, now do we panic? Usually it's not the neurologist calling, especially that quick. Usually it's her office saying she wants to talk to you to discuss results. Can we book an appointment? No, this was her phoning to talk to me immediately. Well, the results were flagged as critical, and what they showed was hypoattenuation in the left side pons and left side cerebellum. So basically, where I've been feeling the pain, the side that's been having the tingling and the numbness, all that issue is there's new foci of infarction since the October CT. So what she's saying is that basically it looks like I've had multiple strokes or mini strokes, transient ischemic attacks, since October 25th when I had that MRI. They believe that it's the left ventricle artery right here that has a dissection. So basically what that means is that there's a tear inside the artery and the blood can't flow freely through it. So it just throws little clots. Now, what's crazy about that is I've been editing videos for the podcast a ton lately because obviously we're came to air today. And I've been noticing in the videos when I'm editing, I can see change in my face. I can see the droop in the left side of my face in the videos, which I'm holding the microphone up really high because now I know you guys are going to look, but you can totally see it. And I'm like, well, fuck. When did this happen? So I'm trying to now piece back through all my video footage and everything I've recorded to see when this started Jean Chrétiening on me. And I cannot seem to pinpoint the exact date, but what happens now is, so my neurologist phoned me and told me about this stroke imagery and what looks to be a dissection in the artery. And she said, I'm going to get you into the stroke clinic right away, which she did. The only thing that I had to wait for was I got the results in the afternoon on the 30th of June, and July 1st is a holiday. So the stroke clinic's not open July 1st. And then it was Thursday, Friday weekend, I think. something like that. Anyways, so by Monday, I got a phone call from the stroke clinic. Tuesday, I was in the clinic with the stroke clinic neurologist. And now the discussion is whether this issue with the artery is a full dissection or if it's a combination of a genetic issue with a narrowing of the artery and dissection. So now I have to wait for another MRI because in all of the scans that I've had, which I have had so many, you guys, like even in the last year, I think I've had 4 or 5 MRIs, 2 or 3 CTs, 1 CT angio. I've had venograms done, which would be nice if the venogram they did went lower because that's what she basically needs to see. So the venogram I had, they were looking at my occipital nerve and sclera. And so it only went to about here on my head where she needs to see just below that. So we didn't luck out in that department. So now I have to go get this done. And she's like, you'll get it fast. I'm like, okay, well, the last time I heard that, I think I waited 18 months. No. The MRI is booked for the 12th of August, and she said that's not good enough. She wants it done before the end of next week. So I should be getting a phone call here anytime. And for reference, today is the 10th of July. So I should be getting a phone call and I should have some more news and I should be able to give you guys an update as to what is going on with my own health. But for now, I'm just going to keep pushing on and hopefully be able to get some really good podcast episodes to you guys that give you some stories to hear that you really enjoy and connect with. I'm really excited to share with you the upcoming season. I have met some incredible people who have been on some incredibly crazy journeys. And it is just such a privilege to be able to sit down and have these people be so vulnerable with me and share their stories. And I really, really cannot wait to share the season with you guys. I hope that you stick around and see some more. I will do another episode talking about my own journey, but for now, I'm going to leave you with this and I am going to try and get some rest because I am pooped. So I love you for stopping in today. I love you for coming back to the Adulting is Easy and Other Lies podcast. We are here to talk about the mess that is life because you know what? The highlight reel isn't all that's happening. That's just the good stuff. That's just the stuff we want people to see. That's the stuff that we want people to think that that's what our life is made up with. But unfortunately, those are such small glimmers in between the real stuff. And the real stuff is what I want to share with you. So if you guys are interested in being a guest on the pod, fill out the contact form. I would love to hear your story and I would love to talk to you and learn more about you. I'm so glad you stopped by. We'll see you next time on Adulting is Easy and Other Lies.